Let me tell you about a little online gaming platform known as Roblox. If you're a frequent viewer of this channel, you're probably very familiar with it. And if you're from a more adult-oriented corner of the internet, you probably know it as that silly little blocky video game that your younger relatives won't stop talking about. But it truly is an amazing platform. It gives anyone who uses it the power to build, code, publish, and play a 3D video game completely for free. You could spend thousands upon thousands of hours playing Roblox games and never get bored. Every day there's at least one great game that took an incredible amount of time and passion to create just thrown on here for anyone to play, alongside a monumentally bigger pile of mediocre games that are useful if you're just trying to kill time. There are billions of users to play with, a catalog full of thousands of well-crafted user-generated accessories for players to put on their avatars, an uncountable amount of fandoms and communities to join, and the platform is still growing. With its budget in the tens of billions, it doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. None of which, might I add, is reflected in its website. Yes, for all the fun this platform hosts under its umbrella, the website Roblox.com, the way most users access every other aspect of Roblox, suffers from a condition scientifically known as being mid as hell. This is what a new user sees when they first sign up for Roblox. Everything is black and white, the only color on screen coming from the thumbnails of the many different games you can play. These thumbnails float alongside plain-looking gray text in a simplistic, minimalist white void. For a platform all about creativity and imagination, it doesn't look like any of that was put into this web design. Kids like color, they like crazy looking shapes and patterns, they like learning stuff. If only Roblox made a website that would attack your eyeballs with fun and unique colors, themes, and information about what you were getting into.
Oh, you mean like this one?
This was the Roblox website circa 2011, over a decade ago at this point. Yes, Roblox is very old, and back in its earlier days, its website looked very different, and in my opinion at least, a lot cooler. Look how many cool things they crammed into the banner alone. A pirate, a ninja, a motorcyclist, a ton of different animals, and this vibrant Frutiger Arab-looking city in the background. And, of course, the colorful, quirky, and memorable logo. The login box isn't much to look at, but it's compensated by this epic Roblox trailer, showcasing a bunch of different players having fun in a bunch of different games. Right below that, there's a massive area dedicated to a featured game, which shows off the community aspect of Roblox and entices you to register to play it. And there's even more information down here, like random statistics about Roblox and a Roblox news section. But the sad truth about this website is that it would never fly on today's internet. It's too cluttered, too silly looking, too unprofessional. In the modern era, the Roblox website is far from the only minimalist void full of rectangles out there. That's just the standard these days. Look at the website of any other multi-billion-dollar company and you'll see largely the same thing. No creativity, no uniqueness, just images, text, flat-colored backgrounds, and maybe a simple animation or two if you're lucky. But, hang on a minute. Many of the companies I just showed you are old. Like, really old. Far older than Roblox. That must mean their websites are pretty old too, right? I wonder if, like Roblox, some of these bland corporate websites also have fun, forgotten versions of themselves from a long time ago. Whoa. You see, I tricked you into believing that I didn't previously know cool old websites existed before I posited that question, even though that's literally the title of the video, so I can make a seemingly candid transition into the main portion of the video. This first website, believe it or not, was what gave me the idea to make this video in the first place. This video was inspired by a creator called Astrosist, and her video, Old Websites Were Cooler, actually. It's a funny and informative video that goes over the earliest versions of some popular websites and contrasts them with their modern-day counterparts. One of the first websites she reviewed in that video was the official Pepsi website, www.pepsi.com. Its oldest snapshot on the Wayback Machine comes from 1996, and looks like this. Words cannot describe how I feel about this being a thing. Pepsi was and still is one of the biggest and most money-hungry drink corporations on the planet, and one of the things they chose to spend a probably not insignificant chunk of their budget on back in '96 was creating a website that doesn't even really look like a website at first glance. It looks like a screenshot of an old video game about traveling through time. Look at the language they use here. Warning: if traveling at speeds less than 28.8 BPS, then jump on the low road. It really makes you feel like you're in a sci-fi movie piloting a sort of space-age vehicle through the multiverse, rather than at home piloting a pathetically slow beige-colored computer that sounded like... Unfortunately, we can't enter Pepsi World through this Wayback Machine snapshot because it requires Flash, rest in peace, but we do have a video of it provided by the Web Design Museum. Aside from free holiday-themed screensavers and e-cards for the annual Pepsi holiday event, it seems to have mostly featured promotions and articles for different segments on the show Pepsi Live, an old Australian show about live musical performances. Each article was hosted inside a mock Pepsi-themed musical venue, which was a very creative touch and furthered this website feeling less like a website and more like a point-and-click video game. My favorite is The Void, which appears to be full of the souls of the damned and is actively being sucked into a black hole. I also like The Pit, which tries really hard to look like a super edgy hardcore punk club, but then you look at the doors and see 2/3 of a Pepsi logo slapped on there for no reason. Brands, take notes. This is legendary web design. I only saw it for a brief moment in a video 2 years ago, but it's stuck in my head ever since, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't kind of want a Pepsi while researching it. In fact, it made me curious enough about early 2000s web design to go down a massive rabbit hole of putting insertcorporationhere.com into the Wayback Machine and seeing if other big websites around that time were just as crazy. Spoiler alert, yes. Staying in the diabetes corner of the internet, the next website I checked out was McDonald's.com, once again in the year 1996. This site was kind of similar to the Pepsi one in that it felt very much like a simplistic video game rather than a website, though the aesthetic was quite different, which makes sense as Pepsi was trying to appeal to music fans and McDonald's was trying to appeal to families. To begin, you'd click the golden arches, which a tiny little minimum wage worker would come out and periodically clean for you. You'd then be brought to a cartoon of the McDonald's restaurant being approached by a family, and you'd be told to click the adults to enter the adult zone or the kids to enter the kid zone. If you chose the adults, you'd be brought to, oh my god, what the is that? You'd be brought to Ronald McDonald. The creepiest Ronald McDonald I've ever seen. Looks like it was drawn by a possessed child while they were having a nightmare. Look at the bug-eyed stares on those workers. They know something about this guy that no human should ever hope to know. Jesus Christ. There were a few things on this menu here that you could click on to get away from this demon. Each one would bring you to a colorful webpage with some slightly less terrifying looking art and information about the promised topic. The kids zone was largely the same, terrifying Ronald and all. The menu options were just more kid-oriented. For some reason it featured a merch store where you could get a Big Mac themed tie, a French fries shaped radio. What kid has ever wanted a McDonald's official collector's spoon? Anyway, the website is insane and looks pretty nightmarish, but you can tell they put a lot of time and effort into making it like that. Everything is stylized and themed quite well, and they packed in a lot of fun games and information for both adults and kids to enjoy. I rank this website a 100,000 out of 10. Please don't hurt me. The Nintendo website's design from 2000 isn't quite as unique as Pepsi and McDonald's, but I still like it a lot. It's centered around a set of 4 arrow keys that are linked to promotions for Nintendo games, and I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure the general shape of the website is meant to resemble an NES game cartridge in its case. Of course, there's more that the website wants to advertise than can fit on 4 buttons, so they've just kind of crammed the rest of their links wherever there was space. It's pretty tacky and clunky looking, but it's also charming and hilarious that this was actually Nintendo's official website back then. Most of these buttons are pretty self-explanatory, but these 4 drew my attention. First is Insider. Insider was a section of the website dedicated to the Nintendo community. It featured live chats and message boards, articles written by community members, community contests, an arena for posting monthly high scores, an entertainment area for hosting fun games and fan art, and Nlist, which was a list of community-made websites dedicated to various Nintendo topics. This was especially wild to see because Nintendo is kinda known for hating their fans fans nowadays. They're constantly copyright striking people and taking all sorts of unnecessary measures to make sure no one can enjoy or preserve their work without paying them. And they especially never listen to their community. This shows that they've really fallen from grace in that regard, which is quite disheartening. Anyway, as for the other 3 buttons on the main site, Code Bank was a collection of cheat codes for pretty much every Nintendo game ever. Again, absolutely insane that Nintendo of all people would have that on their website. Sports redirected to a website called nintendosports.com dedicated to Nintendo's sports games, and DK64 redirected to a very obscure piece of lost media called DKTV that hosted promotional minigames, an instrumental of the DK rap, and a rap competition. Nintendo's website was very fun, and it has me in the mood for some more fun things, so let's check out the funnest place on Earth in 1996, Toys R Us. And you can tell that just by looking at their website. This is literally the most fun-looking, whimsical website I've ever seen. They went so hard with trying to make their website look like a giant fun-filled toy megaplex, and it definitely paid off. At the start, we can go through 3 tunnels: the info zone for adults, the fun zone for kids, and Geoffrey's top picks. Unfortunately, the fun zone seems to have been ripped from the fabric of space and time, but the info zone is in working order, and even though it's just meant to be for boring adult stuff, they made it look just as fun as the intro screen. Every button here integrates seamlessly into the scene, nothing looks out of place. Geoffrey's Greatest Picks is kinda boring, it's just a promotion for this X-Wing toy, but the rest of the website is freaking goated. I would totally want to buy something from Toys R Us if I saw this as a kid in 1996. Heck, I might buy something from it if I saw it now. Miles better than this heap of trash. I was gonna buy the X-Wing as a joke. Went to look for it on Google. It's nearly $100. I'll let you toy collecting nerds have that one, but still, good website. Speaking of toys, let's see what one of my favorite toys as a kid, Hot Wheels, was up to in 1997. Right away, gotta love how they made the entire thing look like a Hot Wheels package. Very creative, very appealing. They have a counter of how many people have visited their website that looks like a car mileage gauge. They could not be more on theme here. I love this. Past the packaging screen, it looks pretty ordinary, at least ordinary compared to the other websites we've seen. I really appreciate how stylized and epic all the art looks, but there's just not that much to see. But if we take a trip forward in time a few years to 2000, we get this metal as heck re-theme that I'll defend with my entire heart and soul. The black paired with the high saturated flames is so hardcore looking and makes these cars look like the coolest looking things in the world. The racing and collectors pages are a little boring and wordy, but the kids section is themed to look like a Hot Wheels racetrack, and it has some really cool offerings, including free CD-ROMs, screensavers you can get with codes found in Hot Wheels, a birthday club, and a game called Speed City, which nobody on the internet seems to remember. I mean it, there is literally nothing on Google about this game. No internet archivists showcasing it, no Hot Wheels history videos mentioning it, not even any confused Redditors asking if anyone remembers it. I can't find a single person who's talked about the original Speed City before, even though there were attempted captures of it on the Wayback Machine as recently as 2021. You can still navigate the website portion, but it had Flash games, and those are just completely lost media now. Someone needs to get Blame It on George on this. It's not exactly a website for a big corporation, but I still wanted to talk about the 2001 official Shrek website, Shrek.com, because this website was so much like a point-and-click Flash game that it pretty much just was a point-and-click Flash game. For one thing, it started with a whole-ass freaking cinematic intro.
You're a monster!
And then the rest of the website doesn't even load because the entire thing requires Flash. Like I said, literally a Flash game. Luckily, the Web Design Museums got us again with a video of what the website used to be like, and I'm just gonna let this play for a bit.
I like my privacy.
Excuse me. Watch where you put that finger.
Outside!
Watch where you put that finger.
I like my privacy.
10 out of 10 web browsing experience, would not get annoying in the slightest. This is art. But You know what? I'm tired of this kid stuff, man. You know, I'm 20, I'm an adult, I do edgy things like drinking Monster Energy, swearing, dropping words like crap and heck, watching horror movies. I need something dark, something twisted, something like... Yeah, that works. Hot Topic was on the internet as far back as 1998, apparently, but the most interesting year for their website, in my opinion, was 2001, when it looked like this. Up here, we've got the coolest iteration of their logo I've seen. Over here, we've got a conga line of probably lesbians who look weirdly cheerful despite being surrounded by darkness and eldritch horrors. Over here, we've got the eldritch horrors in question. Not a single font matches any of the other fonts, and as a cherry on top, some of the letters in the words are just randomly capitalized. Beautiful, no notes, but I'm curious to know what these three buttons are. Mouth Off, Noise, and Underground. Mouth Off appears to have been an interaction page for the Hot Topic community. It featured a live chat service called Hot Chat, which seems like it belongs on a different kind of website. Interviews with band members, links to brand affiliates, polls, contests, messaging boards, fun facts about employees, a place where you can tell Hot Topic about yourself for some reason, and Flip Off's Funhouse, the home of a mildly homophobic evil clown. Noise was a place dedicated to bands. You could get band merch there, find out tour dates for different bands, take part in special band-related polls and message boards, or catch up on the latest band-related news tidbits. Apparently, I've become so desensitized to cursed web design by this point that I almost completely forgot to mention this page's epileptic stroke-inducing background, but that's neither here nor there. And Underground, which is my favorite button personally, unfortunately leads to the most boring page. It's just a bunch of links to things like job opportunities and store locations and actual important stuff. Ugh. There is one funny thing here, though. There's a page called 100 Proof, which is a list of links to various Hot Topic employees' favorite websites. And if you go to this one here, the first thing that pops up is a dialogue box that reads, "You know what they're trying to say when they pay you minimum wage? If I could pay you less, I would, but it's against the law." Hot Topic very much had minimum wage employees back then, and this was just up on their official website for anyone to see. Respect, honestly. By now, I'm sure you get the picture. The old web was absolutely unhinged, and it's really fun to go back through the Wayback Machine and see what kind of web-based oddities even the biggest companies that existed at the time were spending their money on. We've learned about many old website trends that I wish would come back in some way, like turning your website into a game, having an intro at the beginning of your website, not having everything just be rectangles floating in a solid colored void. But you want to know the coolest part about the old internet? Big companies weren't the only thing on it. You may not realize it, but most people on the internet these days only stay on a handful of massive websites and never feel the need to go anywhere else. You want videos? Go to YouTube. Short videos? TikTok. Want to rant about your opinions or show people cool things? Twitter, Instagram, or God forbid, Facebook. Need some information about a specific thing? Google just gives you big text now without you having to do any scrolling through actual search results at all. Or, in a pinch, you might click on a Reddit or Quora link. These massive websites are known as the core web, and it's becoming rarer and rarer for people to visit websites that aren't part of this core web every single day. You simply don't need to anymore. There's another website trend that I didn't really highlight throughout this video, but it becomes pretty apparent once you actually start looking for it. Each website we've reviewed so far had at least a few, if not an entire list, of links to other websites somewhere on it. Yeah, websites used to actually encourage you to explore other places on the internet. They didn't care as much about engagement and keeping you on them for as long as possible, since monetization wasn't really a big thing yet. It was just a hobby for people to vibe in cyberspace on their own little meteorites that they could decorate and customize to their heart's content. If people visited your meteorite, cool. They could have a chat with you, and maybe you two could recommend each other some other interesting meteorites to visit. Nowadays, a select few of these meteorites have grown exponentially to the point where they've collapsed in on themselves and become veritable pocket dimensions, which are governed by much stricter rules. You can hardly customize your living quarters at all in the YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram dimensions. Tumblr and Pinterest are better, but still not great. The sheer gravitational pull of these dimensions has yanked in the majority of internet users today, and destroyed many of those tiny little meteorites that people once called home, leaving today's internet in a pretty sad and monotonous state. And now, if you're like me, I bet you're thinking, damn, old internet sounds cool as hell. I would have loved to experience those little meteorites for myself. What did those even look like? Well, dear viewer, wonder no more. Let me introduce you to the Geocities gallery. The Geocities gallery is an incredibly interesting resource that I definitely recommend you check out in your spare time. It's a project by Restorative Land to resurrect old websites hosted on the once popular web hosting service Geocities, which shut down in the US in 2009. Geocities hosted millions and millions of websites, all created by normal everyday people with just a little bit of HTML and CSS knowledge. It would obviously be impossible to restore the majority of, much less every single one of, these forgotten websites, but the Geocities gallery has quite the collection so far. I browsed it for a while, and here are some of my favorites. The Doctor Who Irrelevance and Irreverence page is a website that immediately grabs your attention by trying to burn your eyeballs out with a 5,000% saturated picture of who I assume is a character from Doctor Who making up the background. It also includes the most hyper-specific trivia game I've ever seen. Whose body is Adric wearing? At the time of capture, the answer was obviously Nicole Bryant's lips. Here we have the personal website of one Lim Song Jing, and we're immediately introduced to a website trend that was most definitely retired for the best, but is still funny to look back on: website background music. This song will play as long as you're on the website. You can't turn it down or mute it. I gotta love, though, how he puts little cutout images of himself all over this site. Really gives it that personal touch. I was especially excited to meet his quote-unquote friend on cyberspace, but unfortunately, because of privacy, this list had takeout already. I wonder what it had. Maybe Subway, maybe Arby's.
Chicken.
Cut that joke out, that's so stupid, oh my god. Skystrike's Decepticon Domain of Doom is a fan page for the Transformers franchise. Of course, it plays a MIDI of the Transformers theme on his homepage, and it hosts fanfics, sounds, and a roleplay club for fellow fans to join. When I first saw this website, I thought it looked pretty unprofessional and haphazardly thrown together, but it apparently won a Great Gig Website Excellence Award from HCP Canada, so hey, what do I know? Here's a website about cake. Minda's Cake, specifically. That's pretty much it. The aesthetic of this Art by Michael Moon website is unironically really cool. I love the low-res GIFs and images everywhere, the nostalgic fonts and word art, the mysterious dark fantasy vibe, and this person made really cool art. I hope Michael Moon, whoever they are, is still out there making cool art today. Murrah's Castle Tower has a very similar vibe, with the added bonus of a custom soundtrack for every single page. I find these soundtracks a lot more tolerable than the blaring techno music that Lim Song Jing had for his website. These ones are a lot softer and make me think I'm in a fantasy tavern about to receive a quest from a wizard. Murrah was apparently an older woman who rode motorcycles and practiced witchcraft, and she has information on here about Wiccan practices and what her family is like. She honestly seems like the coolest grandma in the world, and I'm really glad she decided to make this website. And finally, Dragcon's Dragons. I don't know why, but I really like this one. If I had to name a lesson that you could take away from this video, it'd be creative with your online presence. The internet is an extremely powerful tool, capable of hosting any website you can dream up. Platforms like Geocities let you create and host a website of your very own for free. You can still create websites like the ones I just showed you, and as an added bonus, by doing so, you spit directly in the face of the capitalist institution that is the core web. Personally, after having made this video, I'm very interested in trying my hand at making my own chaotic mess of HTML and low-res GIFs, and I hope that this video has at least somewhat sparked that same interest in you. Don't just settle for floating around in the mini black holes of popular social media. Don't let random guys in suits tell you what makes a website look good. Maybe the design of the early 2000s web wasn't so unhinged after all, and instead, ahead of its time. Or maybe not. Still fun as hell, though. Bye! Big thanks to Svikova789, Chris, Mech, Virtual Fever, Cosmatic, Halo Clay, Headtrap, E. Adamus, Peasel Polsky, Theory Periastron, Below Flames, Lucky Boy, Kelman Foz, SSS Graded, Notice Astra, and all the amazing people you see on screen for supporting me on Patreon. Patreon.com/NitroLord. A very good website.